Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshops. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. And for all those others who like seeing an old man make sawdust. Let's check in with my apprentice. We're going to play a little game with her. All right, are you ready, Rosie? All right, go search. She's looking for all the hidden treats. Something to keep her occupied. Oh, she found one already. She just walked by another one. Anyway, that'll keep her busy for a few minutes. So we can get to work. All right. So Rosie's still busy checking out the workshop. So this episode we're going to finish the upper frame, just a few details, and then we're going to work on the cam disc that goes inside of this thing, and then finally the lower frame, which will probably be an episode after. So let's get to work. Well, the first order of business is we need to cut this all out so that this block can just slide right out. But you got to do that on all 8 places. All right, first thing is I'm going to mark the lines for the saw cut. And then bring those down. Rosie. Take the saw. Rosie, down. Off the mark a little bit on that one. All right, and it's pretty flush, Rosie. Take this Japanese file and get it flush with the bottom. Now, this is not super critical. These the 2 notches is actually where the thing is going to be tracking, so that's the more critical. These ones here are not that important. So we just flush those up until we can get a block, get a test block here. So that works there, there. All right, so I'm going to do that on the rest of them. Then we got to reposition this. It's kind of awkward to turn and get in there. I kind of find a different way to hold it. I'll try it again. All right, I got this up on end, and that makes it easier to get in here and get this side. Those are pretty rough. So then we'll just take a chisel and kind of go down the line of sight here. And just chop away at this way. It'll just take a little bit of time, but that's the process. All right, I got all of these done, and there were a couple that weren't, this is where the seam is, a couple that weren't very flush. I'd take a spoke shave, and then I sanded those a little bit. We're going to sand the whole apron here in a bit, but I kind of discovered another problem when I was doing these, is somehow we got a shift in the height of the apron. So right there is the worst one. It's basically two joints that weren't flush. We're going to put a bead on the bottom of this, so this all needs to be flat. So I took a block that's supposed to be the right size and made a pencil mark all the way around. So I'm going to have to hand plane this and kind of get it. Doesn't have to be down to the line, but it all needs to be kind of close, you know, parallel to the line all the way around. So I got some hand planing to do. All right, we got a little bit of router work to do. We're going to put a 1/4-inch bead along the bottom. It's upside down, obviously. So I got the router, I got the bit set in there, and I got this just for stabilization. So we'll have to, the bit's got a bearing, so it's, but you see this will keep it centered and, you know, keep it from tipping on that little thing. I've got this little block here set up to make I can test that I've got the height set right. So once we do the bead, then we're going to do the same thing on the inside with just a small round over, just so that when you pick this up, it doesn't dig into your fingers. And then we've got a 1/4-inch slot. I'm going to use a, you know, a slot bit with a bearing on the inside. On I've got it marked. I don't know if you can see that on camera. There's a red mark. So from here to here, there needs to be a slot for the handle mechanism. So we're going to do those three things, but it's all the same setup, pretty much the same deal. So here we go. All right, there's a close-up of the slot and the bead, or the round over, and then of course the there's the bead, if we can focus on there. So this upper frame is done except for sanding, clean up, that kind of stuff. So now we're going to work on the disc that goes in here. That's just a donut style. But before we do the donut, we've got to do the curved slots. So there's, the way this works, there's going to be a runner in there with a bearing on it that fits in the slot. Then as the cam is turned, it's going to push that out and push all the leaves out. So we'll need to put those slots in there. And there's there's 6 slots because there's 6 sliders. But so the two that are the large ones move farther than the others do. So that has a different profile. And then there's a left hand and a right hand set on the other two. So let's get to work. All right, This is the blank for the cam disc. We used this before to help center the outside frame. So the only thing I've done different is I marked the 45s and all of that, and at the end of those on a specific arc, I've drilled holes at each of those positions, and that's going to be for our template. And I've more or less marked the starting positions of the bearing. So there'll be, on the movable arm, there'll be a bearing like this. All right, and as the cam moves, it's gonna slide those out. So I've made, well, I should say, this is different than what you'll see on a lot of the other expanding tables. As I'd mentioned before in the earlier videos, this was first patented in 1835 by Robert Jupe. And he used, and most other people use, a metal bar that's fixed to the apron rotates. So it's got one that's fixed and one that's fixed to that point. And then when you rotate that, it shoves that down the rails. And it necessarily has to be curved to fit around the center section. So that's a little problematic for me to make a curved piece, and it would have to have 3 different types, but in pairs, right? These two are going to move farther than the rest, so they have a separate pattern. And then these are offset from the 45, so there's a left offset and a right offset. So that, you know, we'd have to make all those things special. This seemed a lot easier to me at the time. I did this in 2012, and it works just fine. So I've come up with 3 templates for the 3 different patterns that's going to be duplicated on opposite sides. And the way I did that, the way I calculated the curve, was we know where the starting position is, just outside. This is going to be our fixed part of the table. So just outside there, we know where that's going to be. We're going to move this whole cam 70 degrees between the closed and the open, plus 5 degrees over travel, so we can have it open bigger, put the leaves in, and then back to the 70 degrees. So calculating out the 70 degrees and how far we're going to move on this line or this line, we know where we have to end up, right? So this one has to, 70 degrees over and then out to where it needs to finish. That's where it needs to be. That makes sense. So what I did is, in Excel, I calculated in increments of 5 degrees what angle I would have to be to end up in my finishing spot. And so that the curves are nice and smooth for each one of those. So here are the templates. This has got 2 out of the 3. So this is the first one we're going to start with. So it goes on there, and then you pin it at these 45s. So this will be one we have to route, and then we're going to go close to this other side, and we're going to do the same thing. And then see, we got the other one would be right here, and we do it. So I don't know how well that shows up, but that's kind of what we're going to end up with, is that kind of a deal. So we got a little bit more routing to do. So we get all those slots done, and then we can start to cut this out to fit in our upper frame. And getting this inner one perfect on the first shot is going to be the challenge. Anyway. A little problem. You see on the video, the router popped up, so it dug into the template, but then apparently when that happened, it shifted the bit in the collet of the bearing, so the bearing was riding on the shaft, and it cut the slot. I went all the way. This is where it popped up. After that, it's actually bigger than the template now, so all this is too far. So, bummer. Not sure what. I have to figure out what to do. Maybe I can patch that and rotate it a little bit. Bummer. All right, here we are the next day. All the bad words been finished. I had to go out and get some epoxy, so I filled the hole with epoxy. I put tape down and then filled it from the other side, so it's smooth on the other side, which is the important side. So I'll fill this again later. So rather than trying to put the hole back there and risk some of that coming off of there, since there's nothing really securing it to the plywood, I'm going to shift the pattern. It's actually shifted 90 degrees, and so this in blue is where the new holes will be. So, and I had planned to finish this because we're going to wax it so that it slides easy. So we just may just fill those and then paint it, and then wax on top of that, so it won't be very visible. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you the router bit. All right, you can see that the set screw came out of this. So the whole thing dropped. This bearing came away. My assistant or apprentice is nibbling at the stand. So that whole bearing slid down from where it was up at the top. Now, I don't know that caused the router to jump up, maybe, but that certainly is why then it wasn't riding on the template anymore, because that whole thing came sliding down. And that set screw has probably got sucked up in the vacuum, so it's gone. So I have to come up with a new set screw for that. So, bummer. So before I got sidetracked with the bit, what I'm going to do is drill a starting hole a little bit bigger than my 1/2 inch diameter bit in each place, because trying to go down, and then of course it's not guided by the bearing until it gets all the way down to the template, so we don't want to risk. I had to repair the template as well. We had a gash here and there, so I got those fixed, but we'll get the holes drilled and then we'll start over with the router. All right, there it is, all the slots cut, and I put some putty last night in the, kind of fill up the holes, clean up all the marks. So now we're ready to take the jigsaw and roughly cut this to size, and then we'll take the router with a compass tool and make a circle so that it can fit inside the upper frame over there. So let's get to work. All right, I got the outside trimmed with the router, so I'm going to do the inside, but when I get to the end, then everything floats free. So what I've done is taken some of the scraps from the cutoffs, double-sided taped those down to the bench, and then double-sided tape this to that, so that when I finally get all the way around, the two weren't going to move around. And I did a test piece to make sure that I've got this diameter right. I just took a scrap piece of stuff that came with a shipping container. So that fits just over the upper frame ring. So we will just have to go through this. Okay, we got it set into the upper frame. The upper frame is upside down. So we need to, and this is how it would rotate in here. There's just a little bit of slop, less than a 1/16 of an inch, but we're good. So we need to work on the upper frame, and of course when it's right side up, it's going to have the white plastic to let this ride on. Right now it's just on the wood. So we're gonna start on the upper frame, or the lower frame. This is the upper frame. We've been working upside down so much, I'm getting it mixed up. All right, we're going to start on the lower frame. I think I've been mixing up those terms. What we've just finished was the upper frame with the apron. Now we're going to do the lower frame. And I'm going to do this one a little different than what I did last time in 2012. We're going to make sort of a wagon wheel. So we're going to have a hub with the spokes coming out of there. And I'm sorry, I forgot to film doing this. I had this walnut scrap that was, I don't know, 3 inches, 3.5 inches in diameter. It was round. It was a lathe scrap. And it was about the right height. That's a little bit high, but it had a 3/8 hole instead of I'm using the 1/4 inch on all these others. So I put a dowel in it, chucked up in the lathe, and put a 1/4 inch hole in it. But it's got a crown on this top where it was cut off of the other, of the original piece. But more or less, it's the right size. The bottom is flat, so we're good. So what I did was I drew a flat on one side, and then took a little square and drew the lines down. So if I did here, I drew those lines down. Then I took a hand plane and got it till that was all there. And then once that one side was done, I took a bigger square, and made another line over here. Did the same thing, planed that, did that, and then did it with the 45s. Here, how do I get that? Yeah, like that. So did the same thing. So now I'm pretty square. So it's pretty flat all the way around. It's at 45s, and it's square to the bottom this way. So we're good. So now what I'm going to do is do a sliding dovetail down the center of each one of these, and then we can put our spokes in with that dovetail. So I'm going to do that sliding dovetail on the panel router, if I can figure out a way to hold that sucker. All right, I think I figured out a way to get my sliding dovetails in there. They're just going to be straight. They're not going to be tapered. But I didn't have any templates that would let me go the whole length. So I stopped it at the top there. You can see I've done 2. So this block is got a dowel in it that is on the center line. So all I have to do is release this clamp and turn it to the next facet, and just make sure that it's square here, and then then set the depth. Since I did these all by hand, I don't know that these are all exactly equal distant from the center. So I reflush it with this and set the depth to 3/8. I did the first one at a 1/2 inch, and I think that they kind of got close to each other. So this one is 1/2 inch, but the rest are going to be 3/8. So I'll have to do that one differently than the rest. But so that's how it's going. Well, that did not work as well as I had hoped. See this one here, it got, it must have rotated as I went down because it's way crooked. It's way bigger than the rest. And you know, with this one deep one, that's really two that are wrong. And then I started measuring the depth, and they're not all quite the same. It's just problematic. So that's a piece of art. I'm gonna start over. So I got this block. It's already more or less square. I squared it up by hand. So we're gonna lop off those corners and flatten those with the hand plane like we did before, but then we're gonna just use mortise and tenon in each one of those instead of the sliding dovetails. That will be a little simpler. So we got to cut those off and flatten them out. All right, I got the tenons cut and the mortises, and this is kind of what the lower frame is going to look like. So tomorrow we'll work on getting those all cut to length. Now there's one place where they're gonna get cut short, and then there's a piece that goes across, so we've got our 75-degree sweep an opening for that handle, so we'll have to cut those, but we'll need to get these all to the right length. Well, a new day and a new screw up. I went to cut the first member and it was crooked. It wouldn't set flat onto the disc. So I looked at this, and sure enough, see, it's lined up here, but it's off by, I don't know, 32nd of an inch or so at the front. They're just plain crooked. So I can figure out how that happens, since I've never had that issue with the Panarouter. But then the scrap wood that I was using for the to mount that, I was pivoting on this point here. Well, this board, let me back this up a bit. This board is not the same. So it's what? It's 44. Oops. Rosie. My apprentice is helping herself to anything she can find this morning. Anyway, so this side, see, is what, 46 and 44 at the end. So it's only a 32nd of an inch difference from side to side, but that was enough to screw that up. So what I need to do, not all is lost, is I'm going to change these to be, this is a 1/4 inch mortise. I'm going to do a 5/16 mortise and tenon. So we can fix that easy enough. But first I got to run that board through the planer and make it parallel. I think I was just too lazy to do that last time. All right, so we need to cut these to length to fit in here. So what I'm going to do is just set this on. I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to set that on there. We'll use this little block to lift it up so that it's parallel. And without pushing that too far, just going to mark and then we'll just cut that off with the saw. There you go. Just got to repeat that for all of them. All right, there we are. It's all fit. Well, that should do it for this episode. I think three mistakes and you're to strike out, right? I include these mistakes because it's part of woodworking. Everybody does it. You just hope for the time in between mistakes to be a little greater than they were in this episode. Anyway, that'll do it. We'll finish up the lower frame next time, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.